My name is Alice. At 34, I'm a housewife sometimes turned like a pest hunter, spending each year at our country home, which, with the slightest change in climate, seems to multiply its insect population. I was once able to unabashedly scream, "Bugs! Scary! Yuck!" But now, having crossed the age of 30, I stoically whack them down without a flinch. Impressive, isn't it? I've indeed become tough. Now, I want to share a story about how I confronted my own sister, who harbored an unrequited love for my husband. This was a few years back when I was still in my 20s. After a long hiatus, a middle school reunion was organized where I reconnected with Bobby, my childhood friend who lived in my neighborhood. When we first started school, it was Bobby, my younger sister Julia, and me who used to play together. But over time, Bobby drifted away from us, fueled by that typical boyish sentiment of feeling embarrassed to play with girls. In middle school, Bobby's family moved away, and we grew apart even more. So, when I finally talked to him at the reunion, I was quite nervous. But as an adult, you have strong allies. Yes, I'm talking about alcohol. Oh, my dear liquor. Fueled by the power of alcohol, Bobby, whose tongue had also been loosened by a few drinks, and I found ourselves chatting as if we had never been apart. After carrying the party into the wee hours, as we were about to call it a night, Bobby dropped a bombshell. "As a kid, I used to like you, and it seems like I still do even as an adult." To which, after a brief, "What's that supposed to mean?" I casually suggested, "Then shall we date?" And that's how our relationship started. It goes without saying that I laughed my head off when a sober Bobby was rolling around on the floor, questioning himself. "Oh God, did I say too much? So embarrassing. Was I too pretentious?" It's kind of amusing when the person you like is unbearably embarrassed, especially when you're the reason for it. No offense to him. Soon after, we decided to get married quite smoothly. We visited each other's parents to announce our upcoming marriage and our plans to live together, which was scheduled to happen 6 months later. We thought it would be wise to live together before getting married to get accustomed to each other's lifestyle. Being childhood friends, our parents were already familiar with each other. With no issues from either side, we thought it was a done deal. But, to our surprise, a problem arose right in my own house. The incident happened when Bobby came over to our house to announce the news over a family dinner. "Hey, I'm home." With that dispirited voice, my sister came back from work. As soon as she saw Bobby sitting at the table, her surprised look instantly turned into delight. "Bobby? What are you doing here?" Bobby looked a bit embarrassed, glanced at me, and I took over to explain. "Well, we've been dating for about half a year now and we've decided to get married. We invited Bobby over today to share the news." I thought it was right for me to explain this to my own family. The moment I did, my sister's face soured as if she had eaten something bitter. "I see. I'm tired, I'm going to bed. Good night." With that, she hurriedly went to her room and slammed the door shut. I glanced worriedly at Bobby, wondering if she had upset Bobby somehow, but he smiled back at me reassuringly, "I don't mind." Just to clarify, my sister isn't always like that. Something about my marriage or moving in together seemed to bother her. Even our parents didn't have any issues, so what was it that was bothering my sister so much? Confused by my sister's reaction, I kept wondering whether I should confront her about it after Bobby left. As I was about to go take a bath, I bumped into my sister in the hallway. I was at a loss for words, met by her glowering gaze. "I can't believe you are going to marry Bobby. I've always liked him too. I'll never forgive you." My sister stormed off, stomping her feet in fury as if to scatter the wrath of hell. I was left stunned by her unexpected confession. "Wait, are you serious? You liked Bobby?" I shook my head, feeling like I was in the middle of a daytime soap opera. After a sleepless night of turmoil, I finally came to a conclusion. Even if my sister likes my fiancé, is there a problem? After all, Bobby and I are already engaged. If Bobby liked my sister, that would be a different story, but he doesn't. More importantly, if she's liked him since childhood, she should have told him much earlier. It was her fault for not conveying her feelings, and it's misplaced to blame me. I fully expect a lot of flack from her, but I'll try to handle it with all the patience of an older sister. Although it's a pretty heavy situation, I decided to be positive about it. However, I am left wondering whether to tell Bobby about this. Because it would mean revealing my sister's feelings to him. But if I don't tell him, every time he comes to our house, he'll end up having a bad experience like yesterday, without knowing why. Considering him as an involved party, I decided to explain everything to him. If anything happens, let me know. I might not be able to do much, though, Bobby said, looking concerned. Well, it's a sister's issue. If my sister tries to attack me, maybe I'll ask you to be my shield. Hey, don't joke about it. I laughed. And so, we decided not to think too much about it. Neither of us wanted to change our decision to marry, and it's not an issue that can be resolved by persuading my sister to understand. So we chose to let it be. That was our decision. After that, as expected, my sister's hostility towards me increased drastically. On the first day, when I got into the bathtub after her, the hot water had been drained. Haha, it's no big deal, there's always the shower. Honestly, I even have the luxury to joke about her petty attempts to annoy me. However, hiding my makeup and wallet before I leave for work was quite frustrating. I don't have time to go on a treasure hunt in the morning. I frantically searched while trembling at the thought of being late. Thanks to that, I barely avoided being late for work twice in a week, earning cold stares from my boss who said, "You seem to be slacking off with your wedding approaching." I won't forgive her, no, I'm the older sister, I'll forgive her, no, I won't forgive her. I was torn. At first, my parents didn't know about my sister's pranks, but they seemed to notice something was off after she started hiding valuable items. "Why are you doing such childish things?" My mother scolded my sister. Well, she seemed to take it as nothing more than annoying, but the real issue was my father. Shortly after my sister was born, my mother fell ill, and my father had to take care of my sister, who was still a baby, for a few weeks. He tends to favor my sister, or rather, dotes on her more than me. In essence, he's like a mother who's had the experience of raising a child. I can't say I don't understand his feelings. I also found my sister, who grew up in tough times, adorable. When it comes to experiences where I felt outmatched by my sister, well, there's a story from our childhood. I remember once, I wanted to go to the amusement park, while she kicked up a fuss about preferring the aquarium. In those situations, Dad would just say, "All right then, we'll go to the aquarium." Mom was the type to ensure she asked me, "Are you sure about the amusement park?" I don't have bitter memories due to Dad's favoritism for my sister, but I think I would have felt quite inferior if Mom wasn't so considerate. Plus, back then, my friends used to say things like, "My older sister is the favored one." So I didn't think much of the imbalance in affection. Perhaps it's due to my inherently optimistic personality. I used to say things like, "I'd love to see someone who can make me feel down." But this time, Dad blatantly sided with my sister. Apparently, she has been saying that I stole her boyfriend, and in Dad's mind, Bobby is already the terrible man who toyed with both sisters. I could kind of understand why he sided with her, considering things like what will happen to the sister who was abandoned, while the older one can get married. While Mom seemed skeptical about this, saying things like, "Bobby doesn't seem like the kind of person who can do such a thing." She still listened to my perspective that, "No, it's not like that." Above all, Mom was fair, not taking either of our words at face value. However, Dad said things like, "I can't stand to see my youngest daughter, who was dumped, suffering. I won't allow my precious daughters to be treated poorly. You need to wake up." As if I've been brainwashed by Bobby. He won't listen to anything I say. He is a good father who loves both of his daughters, despite the slight difference in affection, but this time, I really wish he would listen to my side of the story more. Being opposed to our marriage was quite a hassle, but I decided to push through. In other words, I decided to move out earlier than planned and live with Bobby quickly. The idea was, if the problem was with my sister, then it would be good to distance myself from her. If I'm not at my parents' house, she can't bother me. The problem ends there. That decision seemed correct in retrospect, as our cohabitation went smoothly. As time passed, Mom said things like, "I think your side of the story is probably right. You're an adult now, so live freely as you wish." And Dad, although seemingly dissatisfied, surprisingly didn't say much. He probably thought that even if Bobby and I break up, I would be pitted, and he couldn't imagine Bobby going to my sister. He likely thought this was the best way to settle things smoothly. I felt sorry for Bobby, who was being painted as the bad guy, but I hadn't heard anything from my problematic sister, and I thought that everything was over. Then came the day of our wedding. As expected, my sister did not attend, and Dad told me, "It's not too late even now," encouraging me to reconsider the marriage. Mom laughed, saying, "I've also thought about how many times I've failed with your dad after getting married. There are many ups and downs in marriage, so be prepared." It goes without saying that Dad turned pale and exclaimed, "Really?" in the background. Not everyone may have been truly happy for us, but under the watchful eyes of our parents, we got married. Then the following day happened. Our doorbell rang loudly. "Huh? What?" Bobby and I sprang up. When we hurriedly looked at the monitor, unbelievably, my entire family had come to visit. "Dad, Mom, Julia too, what's going on?" Surprised, I was stared down by my sister with piercing eyes. I kept quiet, but I'm pregnant with Bobby's child. You need to take responsibility. What does that mean? You don't have a child yet, thankfully. It's best to have Bobby take responsibility now. You should break up with him, and Julia and Bobby should get married. You should give Bobby to her. While listening to my sister and father's side of the story, Mom looked confused and asked me, "What's going on?" In the corner of my eyes, I saw Bobby, still half asleep, followed me to the front door. Huh? What? My child? Huh? Finally, he seemed to wake up and shook his head violently at me. "No, that's not it. I didn't do such a thing." His way of denying was so exaggerated that it seemed like a scene from a comic book. "I understand. Rather, the way you're panicking is suspicious, so stop it." I almost laughed, but I kept quiet. "What do you mean by Bobby's child? How many months pregnant are you?" 2 months. If Bobby doesn't take responsibility, this child will become a child without a father. Isn't that pitiful? 2 months! Hearing my sister's story, I suddenly turned to look at Bobby. "What?" Bobby and I burst into laughter. My puzzled father and mother didn't understand why. Julia was flustered. What are you laughing at?" "Oh, just thinking about something." "Yeah, 2 months ago." I couldn't help but laugh until tears welled up in my eyes. "Julia, we had fun last time, didn't we?" "Huh? Oh, yeah." Julia seemed taken aback by Bobby's sudden question. Our parents glared at him with eyes full of disgust, not understanding what Bobby was getting at. I suppose I'm the only one here who realizes what he's up to. "By the way, Julia, how many packs of abs do I have?" "Huh? Oops." Julia was taken aback. I was on the verge of bursting out laughing. "Do you remember how many packs my abs were split into 2 months ago?" I seem to have lost them. The only one who'd describe losing his abs as if he'd misplaced them would be Bobby. I've laughed so much that I feel like my abs are about to protrude. "What are you talking about, Bobby?" "The correct answer is 0. I was about to say I knew it, but Bobby, paying no attention to Julia's confused face, solemnly confessed that he had no abs. At this, even my mom burst out laughing. It seems the one who makes us laugh wins this game. Question 2. You've seen my moles, right? How many do I have in total? What? No, what? Julia seemed confused about how to react to Bobby's strange questions. And rightly so. Causing such confusion and amusement is Bobby's intention. She's had no physical contact with him, so she won't be able to answer his questions. If she slips up, he'll probably see it as an opportunity for more fun. Instead of quickly denying it by saying, "I didn't notice," he persistently asks her various questions and enjoys the fact that she can't answer. In fact, my mother was beginning to feel something was off with Julia and Bobby's relationship and their attitudes, like, "Isn't something odd for them to be this close?" That makes sense. Such a conversation wouldn't be possible if they were actually intimate. Plus, it's way too embarrassing in front of the parents. The very fact that such a conversation is taking place proves that nothing happened. It seems to be Bobby's way of getting back at Julia by confusing and bewildering her. He was so amused, like a child who had just gotten a new toy, that he had a very innocent look on his face. What a scary guy. If you can't go along with his jokes, you can't be Bobby's wife, I thought as I watched how Julia would react. When asked the second question, she responded in a desperate tone. "Huh? Maybe, like, 10? Buzz!" Wrong answer, actually, I don't even know. At this, even my dad burst out laughing. At the same time, in order to hide his embarrassment at laughing out loud, he said,
"That's enough, Bobby. Don't make fun of my daughter after seducing them."
I stopped my dad, who looked like he was about to grab Bobby. Hold on, let's listen to the story. You said the pregnancy was 2 months, right? If you think about when the child was conceived, it can't be Bobby's. Huh? What do you mean? My mother latched onto my words. Can I say it? When I glanced at Bobby, he reluctantly nodded, making a deeply disgusted face.
No, wait a second. Can I say it?
Can you?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do this. Bobby puffed out his chest and blurted it out with a bluff. The thing is, during that time, I, got stung by a bee in my, private area. At that moment, everyone, even Julia, burst out laughing.
That's ridiculous. There's no way you got stung there.
My dad was angry. My mom was clapping her hands and laughing out loud. Well, you see, it's quite embarrassing, but it's true. It was so hot, I thought I'd cool off a bit. Feeling pretty good about myself, I opened the window where no one outside could see and lounged around naked. Then, from outside, something just flew right in and stung me. Bobby's face, even his ears, turned a bright shade of red in an instant. Feeling sorry for him having to reveal such an embarrassing event because of my family, I tried not to laugh, but I couldn't help myself and burst out laughing.
There's no way there's a man that embarrassing. Well, there's actually, right here.
Bobby retorted loudly to my dad's words, but it's not something to brag about.
That doesn't prove that the baby in my belly isn't Bobby's.
Julia, who had been losing ground, regained her strength and re-entered the fight. No, think about it, Julia. A bee, you know? It stung my important parts. Come on, Dad, imagine it. You're a man, you understand, right? The pain of being stung in such a crucial place. Julia fell silent at Bobby's serious face. Their father, perhaps picturing the situation from Bobby's explanation, subtly covered his groin area and lowered his gaze. Father attempted to wear a stern expression hastily, but it was clear from his look that he was gradually believing Bobby's story.
It's a really important and delicate area for a guy, you know, so it was quite the ordeal. We even had to call an ambulance.
I was more embarrassed being with him in the ambulance. I chimed in, unable to resist the urge to tease.
I was running a fever and it was tough, and anyone who would want to procreate in that condition must have really weird tastes.
You can even verify it with the hospital that treated him, Bobby said in a fading voice, which made Mom burst into laughter.
Bobby, I remember you used to take off your swim trunks while playing in our pool back in the day. Let me see where you got stung.
Mom, laughing her head off, energetically approached Bobby with waving hands.
No! It's already healed. There's no evidence left. There's no way I'd show you.
For some reason, he didn't cover the relevant area but a totally unrelated spot on his chest and tried to escape from Mom's hands. Looking at this scene, it seemed like Mom fully trusted him. I was relieved. It seems like Bobby, on the other hand, isn't going to be able to breathe a sigh of relief just yet. Yeah, I can sympathize with that as a guy. He wouldn't lie about something so embarrassing. There's no need to confirm with the hospital. At that moment, Dad looked at Bobby with a compassionate gaze, as if respecting his dwindling pride. It was an expression I had never seen before. Ironically, it seems like understanding from the same sex came more swiftly due to the unfortunate area of the sting. I wondered if this fell under the phrase blessing in disguise. Meanwhile, I addressed Julia, who was standing there dumbfounded. Listen, no matter what kind of silly lies we are told, neither Bobby nor I are going to get a divorce. I think you're the one who's going to end up feeling worse and worse. You may not believe me, but I really want you to be happy. After all, you're my only sister. The moment I said that, Julia opened her eyes wide.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! I've had enough! I don't like Bobby anymore if he's going to side with you.
As Julia grew emotional and tried to lunge at me, Bobby swiftly pushed her away. I don't care if I'm not liked. It doesn't matter because I love Alice. I think of Julia as a precious childhood friend and sister-in-law, but I will never see you as a lover, not now, not ever. If you continue to lie like this, I'll stand up to it. Because I'm Alice's husband, and I will protect Alice with everything I've got. I felt like I was going to cry. This was a side of him that I couldn't imagine seeing when he was muttering weird things like, "I might be done for, the world is against me," after being stung by a bee. I couldn't help but think my husband was so cool. Watching us, Dad said to Julia, "Julia, if you're really pregnant, show us your medical history or something." Upon hearing this, it became clear that the only reason our parents had believed in Julia's pregnancy was her word alone, without any evidence. I love my parents who believe in their children without doubt, but it seems like their kindness backfired this time. Mom also told Julia, "If it's a lie, you need to apologize to them." Julia bit her lip and trembled.
Enough! No one is on my side. I don't care if you regret it.
With that, Julia, her eyes welling up with tears, stormed off. Dad tried to follow her, but Mom stopped him saying, "Let her be. She needs to cool down." Then, 2 weeks later, Mom forcibly took Julia, who still insisted that she was pregnant, to an OB/GYN. But as expected, there were no signs of pregnancy. There was no sign of any disease either. She was diagnosed as a very healthy adult woman. Mom and Dad apologized to Bobby. "We're sorry for the trouble and for rashly doubting you. We should have trusted you, Bobby, as we've known you for a long time. Please take care of Alice." They also apologized to me. "We're truly sorry for making you go through such an unpleasant experience." To be honest, I don't blame my parents because I hadn't told them about the worsening relationship with Julia. The fact that they are parents who believe in their daughter without suspicion might raise some eyebrows from society, but it is reassuring for a daughter. After all, they are irreplaceable. They are my precious, one and only parents. Everyone makes a mistake or two. This time it just happened to be my parents, strictly speaking, Dad. I seem to have suffered from his favoritism towards Julia again, but considering the great debt of gratitude I owe for raising me so well, I decided to forgive him. After all, without these parents, I wouldn't have grown up so happily, nor would I have met Bobby. My younger sister, out of embarrassment due to her exposed lie about being pregnant, got angry and said,
"I'm done with this family,"
and stormed out of the house. Before, our dad, who was always lenient on my sister, would have run after her, but this time he remarked, "It might be better for her and us to have a cooling off period." Mom said,
"After what she's done, it can't just be excused as a teenage crush. If she can't apologize sincerely when she comes back, she's not welcomed home,"
making her stand clear. I can't imagine my sister, who was seething in anger, apologizing sincerely to us. Mom seems to share the same thought. In other words, this was pretty much disowning her. Fast forward 7 years. My sister did apologize and returned home once, but ultimately, she was officially disowned and kicked out. Why? Because my sister, who initially seemed humbled, got heavily drunk at the end of that year and caused trouble. She snuck into Bobby's bed while he was sleeping and seduced him saying, "Aren't you tired of your sister yet?" Bobby, thinking he saw a ghost, let out a scream so loud it could have led to a neighborhood complaint. That scream woke not only me but our parents too, and that's how the incident got exposed. My sister, who was really drunk, rambled something like,
"But you always look so happy with Alice. It's not fair. Can't you share a little bit with me?"
Of course, that's out of the question. We would never do such a thing. At this, I had had enough and flew into a rage. Bobby was shaking like a small chihuahua, while our parents, displaying an unprecedentedly terrifying expression, disowned my sister. Especially our dad, who used to be affectionate towards my sister, expressed his disgust by saying,
"I don't remember raising a daughter who would assault a man in his sleep."
That's a moment I will never forget. Once she sobered up, my sister apologized repeatedly, but Dad sternly rejected her saying, "Actions you take when drunk reveal your true feelings. We can't trust you anymore." So, tearfully, my sister left home. On the other hand, shortly after surviving this tumultuous year-end, I found out I was pregnant for the first time. Since then, I've been popping out babies quite consistently. Now, at 34, I'm a mom to 4. 2 of them are twins, so technically I've only been through childbirth 3 times. They're nearly the same age, so every day is like a carnival at home. Left alone, the walls are filled with crayon scribbles like some kind of art exhibition, and Bobby and I, armed with cleaning supplies, race around the house on Sunday mornings. Our youngest is going through the terrible twos, resisting clothes, toothbrushing, toilet training, etc. It feels like,
"What do you want me to do?"
But when I see the sleeping faces of my 4 angels, I forgive everything. My parents also, not just their first grandchild but each of the continuously born little angels, seem to feel the same way, and often come to our house to help with childcare. Bobby is also supportive of childcare, and thanks to that, he always gets his hair pulled when he gives piggyback rides, and he is now worried about his thinning hair. But he handles it all with a smile, showing how much he loves our kids. I'll keep it to myself that he shouldn't worry about thinning hair, because with his promotion and increased salary, he can afford a good hair growth treatment. Seeing Bobby troubled by hair loss seems interesting. After all, I want to see all kinds of sides of the person I love, for better or worse. He. Our home is far from calm and quiet, it's extremely lively, even chaotic at times. But right now, I am very happy.
She is not my biological mother, and I will never associate with her again.
At the wedding ceremony of the daughter who I had raised for over 10 years, such words were spat from her during her speech on that glorious stage. Is this her way of repaying me for raising her all these years? Yet, I had somehow known deep inside me that this day would come. Strangely, no tears came. When I smiled and said,
"I was waiting for this moment,"
my daughter let out a surprised, "Huh?" Unable to grasp the meaning of my words. My name is Catherine. I met my husband, Bob, at the hospital. He had come to the hospital but was crouched in pain near the premises. I found him and helped him into the hospital. It seemed that he had developed a stomach ulcer due to stress, and when he recovered, he said he wanted to thank me properly. I told him helping others was a given opportunity and that he didn't need to thank me, but he insisted, so I agreed to let him treat me to a meal. Upon talking, I learned that his name was Bob, and he told me he was having a hard time in his daily life and stress had piled up from all the chaos. When I asked what the stress was about, he told me that his wife had found another man and left him. I felt a slight sense of guilt wondering if I should be hearing all this, but maybe he really wanted someone to listen to his troubles. He shared a bit about his family situation with me. He had a 5-year-old daughter, but about a year ago, his wife started to neglect looking after their daughter. Despite leaving their daughter alone at home, every time Bob would contact her, she'd reply, "I'm at home with our daughter." Because of this, Bob, who sometimes left work early, believed his wife's words until he found his daughter home alone. Apparently, his wife would leave their daughter alone and go out, and even when Bob contacted her after finding their daughter alone, she still claimed, "I'm at home with our daughter." He started to become suspicious. Sure enough, his wife had been seeing another man, and while leaving their daughter to fend for herself, she was out dating. When his wife found Bob, who came home early, spending time together with their daughter, she made an excuse saying,
"I made her to take care of the house just this once."
But, when their daughter said,
"Mom went out with a new daddy again today,"
there was no more room for excuses. Confronting his wife about this, she defiantly abandoned Bob and their daughter, saying,
"I don't need you too. I want to live freely,"
and left their home. Although he wanted to pursue his wife for her wrongdoing, it seemed like she ran away with her lover, so it was impossible. Moreover, it was only suspected that she was having an affair, she hadn't admitted to it, and there was no evidence. Suddenly abandoned by his wife, Bob was left to take care of their daughter while managing household chores and work. He was working to his limit. However, even at his workplace, there were some co-workers who were almost his rivals that spread rumors around saying,
"His wife ran away because there must be something wrong with Bob,"
making him feel uncomfortable. His in-laws also blamed him for his wife leaving, and his own parents, who lived far away, told him,
"Don't rely too much on us."
It seems all this stress built up and led to his stomach ulcer. Thinking that he must have been suffering without anyone to listen to him, I decided to listen to his story till the end. When I heard about his job, I told him that I might know of some job openings in his field, which surprised him. The fact that I had connections in his line of work might have been fate looking back now. At the time, I had no thoughts of marrying him, but I did want to help him, so I introduced him to a new job and he quit his previous stressful workplace. As he had a stomach ulcer, everyone in his new workplace was very considerate, and I think it was much easier for him to work there. After he got accustomed to his new job, he once again said he wanted to thank me, so we ended up going for a meal together again. He expressed his sincere gratification at the meal. Beside him was a little girl. He said he couldn't leave the child alone and go out, which I understood, so we all had a meal together. That girl was Ally, who would later become my daughter after Bob and I got married. She seemed quite shy, hiding behind her father, Bob, and looking worriedly at me. I smiled at her, trying to reassure her, saying, "There's nothing to be afraid of," and tried to start a conversation. By the time we finished our meal, Ally had warmed up to me. After that, we started seeing each other more frequently, and I think both Bob and I may have felt a mutual attraction. "I want to marry you, Catherine." It seemed he had already completed the divorce with his former wife. This was because after his ex-wife was gone, Bob's in-laws has started to prepare filing a divorce of Bob and his ex-wife. The process seemed legitimate, so without any doubts or second thoughts, Bob filed their divorce. Bob was very concerned about being a single father, but still passionately expressed his desire to marry me. I can't deny I was attracted to him too, so I accepted his proposal. Since Ally had also become fond of me, I thought we'd be able to live together just fine as a family of 3. Sure enough, life with the 3 of us went smoothly. Well, until Ally entered high school and some time had passed, that is. I believe we got along well, even though Ally and I were not related by blood. I even had the confidence that I cared for Ally more than her biological mother. I wouldn't leave a small child alone to go on dates with a man who wasn't my husband. If the former wife had planned to introduce the man to Ally as her new dad, she probably planned to get divorced and take Ally with her. But she left, abandoning Ally as well. I was determined to care for Ally more than such a person. However, it seems like whether my feelings were being fully conveyed to Ally was another matter. The incident occurred when Ally became a high school freshman. Ally came home and went upstairs to her room without saying I'm home, so I called out, "Welcome home," from downstairs, but there was no response. Worried that she might be unwell, I went upstairs and asked, "Welcome back. You didn't respond, are you not feeling well?" But she glared at me, saying, "Hold on. You didn't even knock, can you not enter my room? I think you're being insensitive." And she yelled at me. The door was half open, so I thought it was unnecessary to knock and spoke to her directly. Admittedly, it was wrong of me to peek into her room without knocking and speak to her. I apologized, saying, "I'm sorry. I was just worried." But I don't think it was something for Ally to get so angry about. Even after I apologized, she didn't calm down and instead kicked me out of the room, saying, "Just get out." From this point on, Ally's attitude towards me worsened. My attitude towards Ally remained the same even in front of Bob, and when Ally spoke harsh words to me, Bob also chastised her, saying, "Ally, you shouldn't speak that way to your mother." But Ally retorted, "She's not my real mother. We're not biologically related," leaving both me and Bob at a loss for words. Bob and I discussed what to do, but we were both shocked by Ally's sudden change and could only think, "It must be a teenage rebellion. It should calm down eventually." So we had no choice but to wait for Ally to calm down. But Ally's rebellion against me never subsided, and even when she was about to graduate from high school, she still acted hostile towards both me and Bob. Honestly, hearing, "We're not related by blood," over and over does stress me out. So, considering our emotional well-being and hoping that Ally would calm down, Bob and I decided that Ally should live alone while attending college. We thought that by living alone and interacting with various people at college, she would broaden her perspective and reconsider her attitude towards us. Well, that didn't happen. But I think that no matter what we said to her at that point, she wouldn't have changed her mind. At this point, Ally had already fallen into that woman's trap. Even after graduating from college, Ally rarely came home, as if she still hated Bob and me. We wondered when we would reconcile when one day, Ally brought a man to our house. His name was Thomas, and he had been dating Ally for 3 years and was now her fiancé. Neither Bob nor I expected such a happy announcement, so we were thrilled. When Ally and Thomas came home, we ordered takeout sushi, and I think we must have looked quite excited from Thomas's perspective. Ally had been watching us with a slightly cold gaze, but I think there are few parents who wouldn't rejoice at their daughter's wedding announcement. Even if there's no blood relation, the feeling is the same. We were sincerely happy and joyful for their wedding. So naturally, I was moved at Ally's wedding too. On the wedding day, I entered the venue with Bob. As the parents of the bride, we took our seats, and when I saw Ally in her wedding dress, I was so moved that I couldn't help but shed tears. The wedding proceeded steadily without paying heed to my emotions. Listening to Thomas, the groom, expressing the deepest gratitude to his parents, I almost teared up again, even though I'm not his mother. At this rate, I thought I might cry during Ally's speech too. With that thought in mind, I watched Ally step up to the microphone. Then, our eyes met. I was startled because I thought she might not care about me since we're not related by blood. Could she possibly have something to say to me? As I waited anxiously, she began to speak shocking words. I have something I want to say at this time. It's about my mother. Everyone present probably expected her to express gratitude towards her mother. The woman who is currently claiming to be my mother is not my biological mother. Moreover, she deceived my real mom and married my dad. Even though my dad and this woman were the ones who had an affair. They've always said that my mom cheated and left. This was simply not true. But among the attendees, there were people who didn't know us well, so they might not know whether Ally was telling the truth or lying. There was a stir among the suspicious guests. Bob and I were so dumbfounded by the turn of events that we couldn't rebut her. She must have thought everyone would believe her words, because she declared, I have no intention of remaining a family with these despicable people. My mom is a stranger to me, not related by blood. I will have nothing more to do with her. I declare that here. Seeing her make such a declaration, the groom, Thomas, seemed confused. It's understandable. She was denying us as her family and declaring her severance on such a happy occasion. Even if we really were the worst kind of people and she wanted to cut ties, there was no need to tarnish such a joyous event. I never thought Ally could be such a foolish girl. I could feel my love for Ally and the joy of her marriage fading away. I've been waiting for this moment. I had been on edge, thinking I must be recognized by her as a mother and striving to be a good mother. But that wasn't the case. Even among family, there are people who just don't get along. Perhaps Ally and I were those people, even after becoming a family. Even if we didn't get along, there should be room for compromise, but Ally wouldn't give an inch. Why should I have to try so hard for such a person? I might have been waiting for a chance to not worry about Ally anymore. And that chance was now. Huh? Ally let out a surprised voice, perhaps because my reaction was different from what she imagined. But neither Bob nor I cared about Ally's confusion. Well, shall we go home then? It seems like we're not being recognized as parents here. You're right. I'm not in the mood to celebrate such a ceremony, especially after being falsely accused of having an affair. Bob nodded at my words, and we held hands as we left the ceremony hall. Is that really true? No way, it must be a lie. The hall buzzed with the whispers of those who couldn't quite believe what Ally had said. Amidst this, as we headed towards the exit, a disheveled woman who seemed to have arrived late hurried in, crying out, I'm the real mother of the bride. As she entered the hall, Bob reached out in front of me, as if to protect me from the woman, but she didn't even look at us. Instead, she strode to the seats we had just left, plunked herself down, and started demanding, Come on, hurry up and serve the food and drinks. The guests who were attending the ceremony were comparing us, the couple, with the woman, with a baffled expression. Just from observing this situation, it would be easy to infer who would commit something dishonest, like cheating. The woman, who had put on thick makeup and began making a scene about alcohol and food as soon as she arrived, was Bob's ex-wife and Ally's real mother, Wanda. Bob and I had known all along that she was in touch with Ally. Wanda had first approached Ally during her freshman year in high school. Around the same time, Ally had started to show an awful attitude towards Bob and I. When Wanda met Ally in secret, she told her that the reason they had been separated all this time was because of a trap Bob and I had set. She claimed that it was actually Bob who had cheated, with the other woman being me, and that Wanda had been distanced from Ally by every possible means. Ally believed her mother's words and began to treat us harshly, likely planning to call her real mother after condemning us at the ceremony. I never thought she'd actually invite her to the wedding. Wanda probably approached Ally because she wanted money. How do you know that? As we were on our way home, Bob shared his thoughts about Wanda, prompting me to ask him. Well, if she approached Ally when Ally was in high school, Ally was at an age where she could choose her own guardian, right? But Wanda didn't try to get custody of Ally. That's because she didn't have the money to send Ally to college. She must have thought she'd have us cover that. So Ally, being told this by her mother, decided to rely on us for financial matters. And she was probably thinking of cutting ties with us as soon as the expensive wedding was over. Talk about being cut off in the middle of a wedding. We sighed together, astonished. Ally probably has not realized what she has done yet. She ruined not only her own big day but also that of the groom, Thomas, by inviting her greedy, uncouth mother to the wedding and cutting ties with us. She doesn't seem to have any idea how this will affect her in the future. As soon as we arrived home, we received a call from Ally. Answering the call, Ally's voice came through, sounding pained.
What should I do? My engagement has been called off.
Wait, what happened? I asked, playing dumb.
Don't play dumb. The lawyer my father hired showed up with evidence of Mom's affair.
On the way home, Bob had been in contact with a lawyer he had consulted, but I didn't expect that he has sent the lawyer to the wedding. In truth, it wasn't until this past year that Bob had really found out about Wanda's infidelity. Until then, we hadn't been able to hire a private investigator due to Ally's college expenses. But once Ally graduated from college, we had some extra money. After that, we hired a private investigator to dig deeper. The affair was something that happened a long time ago, but it turned out that Wanda and her then-affair partner were still living together. However, he had grown tired of Wanda's money-grubbing personality and her expectation that their daughter would support them if necessary. He agreed to provide evidence of their affair in exchange for Bob not asking for compensation for emotional distress. Once he handed over the evidence of the affair, the man disappeared. With the man who had been supporting her now gone, Wanda must have panicked and came to her own daughter's wedding, trying to re-establish her position as a mother. Well, showing herself in such a state backfired, to say the least. Having nowhere else to run, Wanda reportedly clung to Ally's wedding dress and begged for her help. The groom's family, who had watched Ally defend her adulterous mother and insult and cut ties with her father and I who had raised her, must have decided to call off the wedding, saying, "We never thought she was that kind of person." Upon hearing that, I let out a heavy sigh and said, "Isn't all of this self-inflicted, Ally? If only you had trusted us enough to talk to us before trusting your real mother, we could have proved that we were not having an affair. Weren't you the one who one-sidedly despised us and severed ties? We consider you a complete stranger now, so please never contact us again." I hung up the phone. Naturally, Ally never ended up marrying Thomas, and she ended up having to pay the full cost. Moreover, she now has her real mother as her burden, so she seems to be in quite a predicament. Since she had invited her colleagues from work to the wedding, her misdeeds have become well known, and she's in an uncomfortable position. But she can't quit because she needs the money. As for us, we moved without telling Ally. We thought that she might come to rely on us someday because she knows the location of our old house. Now, we live peacefully in a tranquil location, having forgotten about Ally and Wanda. Ew, it's bloody and dirty. I really hate this. My mother-in-law laughed, pointing at my head. I had collapsed from heatstroke, brought on by being ordered to clean the garden under the scorching sun by my mother-in-law. Where I fell was rather unfortunate, and I hit my head hard on a garden stone. There was so much blood coming from my head that it was all over my palm. Thinking about who caused me to collapse just adds to my headache. I've been feeling nauseous the whole time, and even dizzy. In this state, it's not just driving that's out of the question, even walking is impossible. So, I called an ambulance, but my mother-in-law started giggling when she saw my call history. You called an ambulance for this? Young people are such a hassle. I wonder if they know that real emergencies are being overlooked because of idiots who call ambulances for stupid things. You should have gone on your own. Saying this, my mother-in-law dragged me by my arm, forced me to stand up, and put me in her car. As angry as I was with my mother-in-law for calling me dirty, it's true that it would be helpful if she could take me to the hospital. I reluctantly thanked her for dragging me, the injured party, around. Thank you very much. It's fine, dear, because you're going to the hospital by yourself. She laughed and turned the steering wheel. But the direction she turned was not towards the hospital. Wait, what's up ahead? My name is Sophia, I'm 28. I work as an office worker from Monday to Friday. When I finished work and was watching TV at home, my cell phone rang. The call was from my friend Emma, who had moved to New York with me. Sophia, are you free after work next Friday? I hang out with Emma about once or twice a month. There's a drinking party, do you want to come? With no particular plans in mind, I quickly agreed to go. That's where I met Lucas, who was 4 years older than me. We both loved traveling, and we hit it off talking about the places we visited, so we exchanged contact information. From that day on, I started talking on the phone and emailing with Lucas every day, and we started hanging out on our days off. I had so much fun spending time with Lucas that no amount of time was enough. We were attracted to each other, and about half a year later, we started dating. After we started dating, we traveled domestically and abroad, and made a lot of memories together. About 2 years into dating, we got married. Right after we got married, Lucas was transferred, and I quit my job and became a housewife. Lucas works for a big company, so he's likely to be transferred in the future as well. We immediately started looking for a new place to live. A few days after the transfer was decided, my mother-in-law called me on my cell phone. Immediately upon answering the phone, I was asked, "Sophia, do you have a moment?" To which I responded, "Hello, mother-in-law, it's been a while. I'm free to chat. My husband has injured his leg. We heard you're moving from New York to our area, and I was wondering if you could consider living with us. I'm having a hard time taking care of my husband by myself. It would be a great relief if you were here." And so, she proposed that we live together. Though my father-in-law insisted he was fine because his injury wasn't too severe, his gentle nature made him a man who wouldn't complain even when in pain. Both my husband Lucas and I became worried about him, and decided to move in together. I had visited my in-laws' home once before for a marriage meeting, and it was so large that it seemed it could serve as an inn. Despite the parents-in-law downplaying it as just a country house, it was obviously more magnificent than most other homes. The abundance of rooms was also a factor in our decision to move in. I'd met my father-in-law several times since dating Lucas, and we'd grown close over shared conversations about our mutual love for sweets. About a month after moving in, my father-in-law's injury was healing well and it seemed he would be fully recovered soon. However, during a light exercise session while organizing the storage, he accidentally dropped a heavy object onto his injured leg, causing a fracture. He was immediately taken to the hospital where it was determined he needed surgery and would need to be hospitalized for about 6 months. After completing the hospital admission procedures and bringing back some clothes, I returned home to find my mother-in-law standing at the entrance. "Mother-in-law, I'm back. I'll get started on dinner now." I greeted her with my usual smile, but she stared at me coldly and retorted, "What took you so long? You're so slow, it's annoying." I was stunned and couldn't comprehend what had just happened. As I stood there, she flared her eyes and barked at me. "What are you standing around for? Go make dinner." With that, I hurried to the kitchen to start preparing dinner. The moment my father-in-law was hospitalized, my previously kind mother-in-law underwent a complete transformation. I initially thought she was just in a bad mood, but from that day on, she started bullying me behind my husband's back. When my father-in-law was home, my mother-in-law used to prepare breakfast while I took care of lunch and dinner. But now, I was responsible for all meals and all household chores. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law stopped doing any chores and spent more time watching TV or sleeping till noon. When she was awake, I would get nagged about how the food was too salty or how my cleaning was sloppy. Since the house was large, cleaning alone took a considerable amount of time. The hardest part was managing the yard and garden. Being in the country, both the yard and garden were quite large and dealing with the weeds was a real struggle. They used to hire professionals for the maintenance, but now I was in charge. If any weed was left untouched, my mother-in-law would scold me. I initially endured it, but realizing that I won't have time for our child once they're born, I confided in Lucas. He took my side and spoke to my mother-in-law.
Instead of reflecting on your own shortcomings, you've roped Lucas into your scheme. If you were more efficient with your chores, none of this would be necessary. Do you enjoy making me out to be the villain? Really, what an ungrateful daughter-in-law you are.
She retorted, increasing her verbal abuse. No matter what we said, my mother-in-law wouldn't listen, and so we decided to move out. However, we had missed the spring moving season, and there were hardly any apartments available. And the ones that were available were too far from Lucas's workplace, so we decided to move into a new apartment that was nearing completion and would soon be open for applications. From spring, past the rainy season, the season turned to summer. I woke up to the energetic sound of cicadas, and started preparing breakfast for my husband and mother-in-law. After sending off my husband, I was about to return to my room when my mother-in-law blocked my path and threw a sarcastic comment at me, complaining about the breakfast not tasting good or the dishes not being cleaned properly. As I was hanging my head, hearing the same complaints every day, I heard a car engine outside. Assuming it was my husband going to work, I was suddenly pushed out the front door by my mother-in-law and I fell on my butt. She then threw a garbage bag at me and said, "Clean the yard and garden today. I won't let you in until you're done." And she laughed as she slammed the door shut and locked it. I knocked frantically on the door, but there was no sign of it opening. I headed for the back door, but it was locked too. A round trip around the house revealed that all windows were locked as well. I was at the front door, seeing my husband off, so I didn't bother to bring my wallet or smartphone with me. Suddenly, I heard my mother-in-law's laughter from behind. "Still standing there? Get a move on and start cleaning. If you work hard enough, I might be gracious enough to give you a drink." She laughed mockingly at me from the living room window, and when I rushed over, she promptly closed and locked both the window and the door, grinning widely. Without any other choice, I reached for the trash bag and started pulling out the weeds that lay before me in the buzzing heat of the cicadas. After a while, I saw my mother-in-law leave the living room. I moved out of sight from the living room and started thinking about what to do next. If I kept weeding under the scorching sun, I was likely to suffer from heat stroke. I thought about asking someone for help, but everyone around me had either gone to work or was out in the fields. It would be too risky to walk under the sun to the fields, so I decided to hide in the shade until my mother-in-law came to check on me. However, there was no sign of her, and before I knew it, the sun had moved directly overhead. With no shade left, the ruthless summer sun began to scorch my skin. Feeling like a boiled lobster, I knocked on the living room window where my mother-in-law had been watching TV. Opening the window with a look of annoyance, she said, "What's this? You've only done this much in 3 hours?" She glared at the yard. Smirking, my mother-in-law pointed to a large weed near a garden stone and said, "Just pull that one out, and then I'll give you some water." With my throat parched, I squatted down near the stone, trying to ignore the nausea. That was the plan, but it seems my body had reached its limit. Instead of squatting, I fell towards the garden stone. When I put my hand to my throbbing head, I saw blood. I must have hit it on the stone. At that moment, I heard my mother-in-law scream. She rushed over, saw my blood, and recoiled.
"We need to go to the hospital. Grab your insurance card and come to the car,"
she yelled, and hurried back towards the front door. I went into the house from the living room and grabbed my wallet and phone. I called an ambulance on my phone, and knowing they would be there soon gave me some peace. As my consciousness started to blur, I could hardly make it to the car park and collapsed onto the cool floor. The chilly sensation of the tiles made me take a deep breath, but suddenly my arm was yanked.
"I'm not letting you die here. We need to get to the hospital now."
My mother-in-law said this, yanking my arm and forcing me to walk to the car park. Feeling nauseous and wanting to wait for the ambulance, I tried to communicate this to her, but she wasn't listening. Forcing me into the back seat, she started driving recklessly. If I was going to the hospital myself, I thought I should call again to have them stop the ambulance, and as I clutched my smartphone, I realized that the scenery outside the window was odd. Instead of driving through the city where the hospital is, she was driving toward a remote area densely filled with vegetable and corn fields. Just a few minutes later, she stopped the car and dragged me out. There was nothing but cornfields around, and because it was lunchtime, everyone was away eating and nobody was around. Seeing the evil grin on my mother-in-law's face, I gripped my phone tighter, but she forcibly snatched it away.
Young people these days, calling an ambulance just because they've got a little blood. Can't you think of what the neighbors would say if an ambulance came to our house? In this day and age, there are too many fools calling ambulances for trivial reasons, causing trouble for people who really need help. You, such a foolish daughter-in-law, need some discipline. Stop moping around and walk to the hospital yourself, haha.
She put the snatched phone into her own pocket and began to drag me, dizzy and weak, toward the cornfields. The view from the edge showed nothing but lush rice plants, no one in sight.
Stop it!
I pleaded desperately with her, but she just chuckled and said nothing. My mother-in-law violently shoved me. Suddenly there was no ground beneath me, and I was bombarded by pain from all directions. Looking down at me moaning, she laughed with satisfaction, then got back in the car without looking back.
Wait, please, wait!
I screamed as I clutched my throbbing head. But all I heard was the diminishing sound of the engine. My mother-in-law had dumped me in a cornfield and drove off. I closed my eyes to escape the glare of the sun. Without my phone, I couldn't call for help. An ambulance wouldn't come to such a remote place. Even if I wanted to signal for help from a passerby or a car, no one would see me from the road, lowered a step from the rice field. I might die here. That was my last thought before my consciousness faded to black. My eyelids fluttered. After blinking several times, I saw a white ceiling filling my vision. Looking around, I realized from the clean bed and surroundings that I was in a hospital.
Lucas?
I spoke to Lucas, who was lying face down, holding my hand while sitting in the chair next to the bed. Lucas jerked his head up.
Sophia, I'm glad you woke up,
he said, tears welling up as he hugged me. He had stayed by my side until I woke up. Lucas explained to my confused self why I was here. I hadn't died, but had fainted from heatstroke. Fortunately, the owner of the cornfield returned early after having lunch and discovered me collapsed there. He quickly called an ambulance for me. I was in a critical condition, so I was transported to a large nearby hospital and narrowly escaped death. When I heard the name of the hospital, I realized it was where my father-in-law was admitted. He seemed to have come to check on me several times out of concern, so I thought vaguely that I should go and thank him later. Then, I remembered about my mother-in-law.
Lucas, about her.
Lucas took a deep breath, gripped my hand tightly, and began to speak with a serious face. My mother-in-law returned home with an innocent face and tried to send the arriving ambulance away, pretending she knew nothing. The cautious paramedics suspected she might be the prank caller, and were questioning her when the front door suddenly opened.
Mom, what's going on? Why is there an ambulance parked at our house?
The one who rushed in was Lucas. Originally, he was off today, but he had to go to work due to an unavoidable task, and came home as scheduled in the afternoon. The paramedic explained that they had received a call about a case of heatstroke with bleeding from the head and came to this house, but since the crucial person who reported wasn't there, they were talking to my mother-in-law. Lucas, taken aback by the serious manner of the explanation, immediately called me from there. Just then, my mother-in-law held Lucas's arm, breaking into a cold sweat, and laughed. I remembered, shopping. Sophia said she was going to do the lunch shopping. That's why she'll be back soon, right? Not only Lucas was suspicious of her behavior.
Sir, please call your wife. Didn't you hear? She'll be back soon.
As soon as the paramedic said this, my mother-in-law lunged at the man from the ambulance crew. Meanwhile, Lucas dialed my cell phone. The ringtone of my cell phone could be heard from my mother-in-law. Oh, this is my ringtone? I asked Sophia and set the same sound. It's such a coincidence that I got a call at this timing.
Mom, show me your cell phone.
Lucas confronted my mother-in-law who was rambling on in a fast pace. Lucas, exasperated by the feigning ignorance of my mother-in-law, forcibly put his hand into her pocket, and, glaring when my cell phone came out of her pocket. My mother-in-law, who let out a small scream, ran upstairs as if escaping from Lucas. He chased her immediately, and she seemed to have slipped just before reaching the top of the stairs. She fell down the stairs, and her legs were obviously twisted in a way they shouldn't be. In the end, my mother-in-law was sobbing from the pain in her leg and had no time to talk about me. The paramedics said they would contact the police and search, and Lucas agreed readily. For now, they couldn't leave my mother-in-law as she was, so they had to take her to the hospital in the car. And at the hospital they arrived at, Lucas said he had found me by chance being brought in. If I hadn't been at the hospital, they were planning to call me after you woke up and heard what happened. But I'm glad I found you, even if it was a coincidence. Lucas left my mother-in-law to the doctor and was with me all the time. Sophia, I'm sorry. I never thought my mom would go this far. She's not a violent person, even if she's sarcastic. I'm really sorry for putting you in danger. I'm glad you're alive. Saying this, Lucas apologized to me, shedding big tears. Fortunately, my head wound was not serious, and the bleeding seemed to have stopped by the time I was brought to the hospital. Rather, the heat stroke caused more damage, and I still had an 4 in my arm. But it's almost over, and as long as I don't feel dizzy afterwards, I can go home. When I think about going back to that house, I feel depressed. Then I suddenly wondered what had happened to my mother-in-law since she came to the hospital. Lucas, you didn't do anything wrong. But I can't live together anymore. So, what happened to her? I asked while stroking Lucas's crying back. Lucas said a little awkwardly. Actually, she's in the next room. Apparently, due to the availability of beds, my mother-in-law is next door now. I can feel my heart pounding and my pulse quickening. If they had found me later, I might not be here now. Thinking about it made my body shake with fear and anger. Mom broke both her legs and will have to be hospitalized for a while. I guess it's karma, Lucas said with a stern look. I couldn't just back down quietly and said, Lucas, I'm going to see my mother-in-law now. And got out of the bed. There was no dizziness, and I could walk normally, so I went to the next room with Lucas. Since my mother-in-law was the only one in the next room, I walked straight to the back of the room, stood by my mother-in-law's bed, and said, You look terrible. Do you understand a little how I felt when I wanted to call an ambulance? When my mother-in-law saw me, she snapped. You're as fit as a fiddle. I bet it was just a pretense of illness. And didn't even try to meet my gaze. Unable to contain my anger, I firmly stated. After that, someone immediately called for an ambulance, which is why I'm still standing here. If it weren't for that, I might not be here right now. Meeting you now made me realize that you have no trace of remorse for what you did. I will sue you. Be prepared for that. My mother-in-law was yelling things like, You're just a lousy daughter-in-law. Or, I won't forgive you for suing me. But I ignored her and left the hospital room. The next day, I was discharged. Just when I received a call from the new apartment management company I had applied to, I went for a viewing and decided to move in on the same day. Moving in was quick, and since we could move in right away, my husband Lucas immediately hired a lawyer to prepare for suing my mother-in-law. When we went to my mother-in-law's hospital room with the lawyer, she had a blank expression at first, but gradually turned red and started yelling. I really can't understand what you're thinking. Is it wrong for a young person like you to clean the garden? It's your own fault for pushing yourself and ending up with heat stroke. To be honest, it'll be tough to sue you for what happened until Sophia collapsed, as there's no evidence. But there's a record that Sophia called an ambulance on her phone. We saw that you had Sophia's phone after that time, and both me and the paramedics saw it. Besides, there are traces of Sophia's blood in your car. So, we plan to use these points to make a case against you. My mother-in-law was shocked by Lucas's cold words, and she kept crying and insulting me. You can say whatever you want, but be prepared that insulting or defamation charges can lead to heavy compensation. When my voice reached her, my mother-in-law slumped her shoulders and continued crying. We left the rest to the lawyer and moved to the new apartment. We enjoyed a peaceful life together. And about 3 months later, my mother-in-law called. No one had brought her a phone while she was in the hospital, so she hadn't been able to make any calls. As a result, I had completely forgotten to block her calls. Seeing Lucas nod next to me, I nervously answered the call.
Why is nobody at home? This is your home, right? Come back with my son. Both my husband and I have become unable to walk, so we need someone to take care of us. It's only natural for a daughter-in-law to take care of her in-laws, even someone as dumb as you should understand that, right?
Just as Lucas's face turned red and he was about to shout, we heard my mother-in-law's laughter from the other end of the line.
Oh, and one more thing. Return the money I lent you right away. Honestly, you borrow money from your parents and call it compensation. Stupid women like you have no idea what you're thinking. I'll have to give you proper education for your rotten way of thinking.
Even after taking a few seconds to process my mother-in-law's words, I couldn't understand what she was saying. Listening to my mother-in-law's continued words, it seems she thinks the compensation she paid me was the money she lent me. I was at a loss for what to do, and Lucas clenched his phone tightly.
The one with a rotten mind and way of thinking is you, Mom. We won't have anything to do with you from now on. Don't ever come back or try to meet us again. Look up the meaning of compensation in the dictionary. Stay away from us for good.
Following Lucas's loud shouting, I shouted just as loudly. Then, we hung up the phone and quickly blocked her calls. Lucas even deleted my mother-in-law's contact information. Even though we had treated it as a settlement after receiving the compensation, I decided to consult the police about my mother-in-law's situation again. It turned out she was already being sued by the owner of the cornfield, due to my fall in the cornfield leading to a loss of harvest. Moreover, when I fell, I collided with the water pump in the field, causing it to malfunction, making it impossible to add or drain water. As a result, the condition of the corn deteriorated rapidly, and the owner was furious. Since my mother-in-law had paid me the compensation, she had very little savings left, and her situation became dire. And I finally understood why my mother-in-law wanted money back, but it was no longer my concern. I brought a gift basket and apologized to the owner of the cornfield for my fall, but he kindly laughed and said that it was the person who pushed me who was at fault. In the end, my mother-in-law took on debt to pay the settlement to the owner of the cornfield and is now working desperately to repay it. Actually, my mother-in-law had been asked for a divorce by my father-in-law and was driven out of their house. In her eyes, I was still the thief who stole her beloved son. And she couldn't stand it when she realized I had a good relationship with my father-in-law. That's why she planned to dominate me while my father-in-law was in the hospital to establish her position. However, it backfired, and she ended up almost killing me. My father-in-law left behind some inheritance after dividing the property and sold the house before moving away. My mother-in-law lost her home and has been living in a pitiful state every day. She is still searching for my father-in-law, but she won't find him, because he now lives with us. My father-in-law is with us until he gets a new house after selling the previous one. Of course, we haven't informed my mother-in-law about it. My father-in-law was safely discharged from the hospital, and now his condition has improved to the point where he can go for daily walks as part of his physical therapy. While his everyday movements have become a bit slower, he doesn't require full-time care, so we opted to watch over him from nearby. I still maintain a good relationship with my father-in-law, and on days off, we even go on trips and have meals together.
I really have to go to work. So let's go to the amusement park another time.
The day before our daughter's birthday, my husband, John, suddenly canceled our plan to visit the amusement park. Since it couldn't be helped, I went to the amusement park with my daughter, Lily, and to my surprise, we saw John there, enjoying himself with a woman and a child we didn't recognize. Seeing John prioritizing plans with other people on such a special day, my anger exploded. And then, I decided to take revenge that he would regret for the rest of his life. My name is Susan Mitchell, 34 years old. I work as a certified public accountant. When I was younger, I was a hard worker. But after giving birth, I decided to cherish the time spent with my daughter. So, I've become a freelancer and I'm comfortably working from home. Our family of 3, including my husband John and our daughter Lily, is not particularly wealthy, but we're living a happy life. I met John when we were both college students. We were both part-timers at the same pub. While I was studying in college to become an accountant, John was attending a training school to become an actor. Despite both of us not having much money, we bonded over our shared goal of achieving our dreams, and that's how our relationship began. I passed my exams and started working in an accounting firm after graduating from college. However, John struggled to find success. After graduating from the training school, he was affiliated with a small acting agency, but the jobs he got were mostly extras. It was a difficult situation to make a living out of acting. Yet I admired his dazzling determination to pursue his dreams, and proposed that we should live together to support him. From then on, I took on all the living expenses and even gave him $300 monthly as pocket money. I believed without a doubt that John's efforts would eventually be rewarded, but at 28, when I got pregnant, he gave up his dream. Now, he works at a construction company and serves as a worker at the site. I felt guilty for making him give up his dream, but I respected him for working so hard as the family's breadwinner. However, I had some complaints about John. It was about what happened from when I got pregnant with Lily until her birth. I had severe morning sickness and couldn't even eat properly. Even when I was in the toilet, unable to bear the sudden bouts of nausea, John showed no signs of concern. I couldn't do the housework, and the sink was always full of his eaten instant noodle cups and empty bottles. "Could you help with the housework? I'm not feeling well." Housework. Just leave it. I have to start work next week, so I gotta enjoy my current free time. Whether he was joking or serious, I got irritated with John's complete lack of will to help with the housework. However, John probably doesn't care at all even if it's dirty. On the contrary, I'm a bit neurotic, and I'd get bothered if there's anything in the sink. I thought this was a matter of personality, so I should do the housework if I'm the one bothered by it. So, no matter how difficult it was due to morning sickness, I was desperately doing the housework. Then came the day of delivery. I started having contractions, and asked John to call a taxi. While sweating profusely and bearing the pain, we arrived at the hospital. Then, John said something shocking. "It's gonna take a while before the baby comes, right? It's boring waiting, so I'm gonna head home. Let me know when the baby is born." "What are you saying?" That's because the first delivery takes time, right? I can't do anything at the hospital, and I might be in the way, so I'm going home. Good luck. Looking forward to meeting the baby." He said it with an innocent smile, and I was at a loss for words. Despite me going through labor, which is a matter of life and death, John said he's going home without accompanying me during delivery. My anger boiled over at John's nonchalant attitude towards the delivery. I tried to retort, but John had already gone home, and I had to face the delivery with a frustrated feeling. And after enduring the long 12 hours of labor, when I finally gave birth to Lily, John was unreachable because he was asleep. When John arrived at the hospital the next day, he gave Lily a big hug and smiled with joy. "Gosh, she's so adorable. Good job, Susan. Once you're discharged, let's go out to eat." Anger surged within me at John's carefree words. Does he not understand that it's not easy to go out with a tiny baby like Lily? And does he think he's showing sympathy by saying such light words like "good job"? Once the anger set in, everything John did began to irritate me. I didn't want to fight right after giving birth, and I didn't have the energy left, so I had no choice but to stay silent. John may be unreliable and sloppy, but ever since he gave up his dream of becoming an actor, he's been working hard. Although his income is low, I honestly respect his dedication to sweating it out from early morning to late at night. I decided to show my appreciation by planning a birthday party for John with Lily. I wonder what Daddy would like. Fried chicken, perhaps? What should we get? Let's get a big cake. Yay! Lily wants a chocolate cake. This isn't your birthday, Lily. Hearing that, Lily broke into a fit of giggles. Now 5 years old, Lily has grown into a cheerful and lively child. She has large, adorable eyes just like John, and he's always saying that she could become an actress in the future. Lily, who's so cute, adores John and was looking forward to celebrating his birthday. And then came John's birthday. We had prepared a cake and a slightly more lavish meal than usual, but John didn't come home. In the evening, he sent me a text saying he was busy at work and would be late. Daddy's not coming home?
I'm sorry, honey. He said he's working. So let's do the birthday party tomorrow. But it's Daddy's birthday today.
I held Lily, who was on the verge of tears. It was unfortunate as she had been looking forward to it, but there was nothing we could do since it was work. After putting Lily to bed, I waited for John on the sofa. I was waiting in the living room, intending to tell him when he got home that Lily had been eagerly waiting to celebrate his birthday, but he didn't return until morning.
Is work that busy?
Huh? Oh, yeah, I guess so. When I called out to John as he arrived home, he responded in a surprised voice.
Lily was waiting to celebrate your birthday.
Really? I screwed up.
Tell her I'll make it up to her by taking her to the amusement park next time.
Saying that, John quickly left the house. Watching him leave for work without even having time to rest, a feeling of suspicion grew within me. If he really had been working until morning, it would be a clear violation of labor laws. Also, considering the overtime he claimed he had worked, John didn't seem tired at all, which made me suspicious, so I called his workplace. And then I found out that John had actually left work at the regular time. It wasn't as much of a shock as I thought it would be. I was just increasingly angry at John for taking Lily's feelings so lightly. He was probably cheating. There had always been a lot of women attracted to the good-looking John since we were dating. And John, seemingly happy to be fawned over, had cheated on me a few times. I had accepted it because we were young at the time, but I was appalled that he would still cheat even after turning 30. I wanted to confront him, but I had no evidence yet. Lily loves John. If she found out he was cheating, our happy family life would crumble. In the end, I swallowed my frustration and didn't confront John at the time. A year later, Lily turned 6. She was going to start elementary school the following year and had grown up quite a bit. Lily, who still adored John, said she wanted to go to the amusement park with him on his birthday.
I got the day off, so I can play all day with Lily. Hooray! I'm gonna ride the roller coaster.
That sounds great.
Let's also ride the Ferris wheel.
John and Lily were happily talking, and I too was looking forward to Lily's birthday. However, the day before Lily's birthday, John suddenly said he couldn't go to the amusement park. I have to instruct construction methods in developing countries for my company. The person in charge got sick, and now I have to go. So we'll go to the amusement park some other time.
Why? You promised we'd go together. You're a liar, Dad.
Lily started crying out loud. Looking at Lily, John scratched his head in frustration. I can't help it, it's work.
Stop being so selfish.
The atmosphere froze as John, with a cold expression he'd never shown to Lily before, bluntly spoke.
You don't have to be so harsh. Lily was really looking forward to it. Why are you talking like that?
Holding Lily close while glaring at John, he uncomfortably shifted his gaze and left the living room.
Lily, your dad has to work tomorrow, so how about you and I go to the amusement park together? Would you hate it if it's just you and Mom?
I don't hate it.
Then it's a date at the amusement park for the two of us.
When I intentionally spoke brightly, Lily, whose eyes were red and swollen, softened her expression. After that, I booked tickets for the amusement park, and the next day, we left the house in matching dresses. I was irritated by John's selfish actions, but all I had in mind was to make Lily happy. Once we arrived at the amusement park and saw Lily's eyes shining, I felt relieved. As we enjoyed the amusement park, riding the roller coaster, the merry-go-round, and finally when we were on the Ferris wheel, Lily and I saw a shocking sight.
Mom! It's really beautiful. Indeed. Look! You can see the ocean over there. That's true. Mom, isn't that Dad over there?
Lily pointed down from the Ferris wheel. There stood John, lined up to ride the Ferris wheel. Next to John was a woman wearing a cap low over her eyes and sunglasses, and a girl a little older than Lily. The three of them were laughing happily and looked like a perfect family from afar. I quickly covered Lily's eyes.
Don't look!
I had no idea why John was there, or what his relationship was with the woman and the girl. My mind was a mess, but above all, I didn't want Lily to know this side of John. It would hurt her to know that her beloved father was cheating and prioritizing promises with other people over her. I didn't want to make her sad on her birthday.
That man looks a lot like Dad. But he could be someone else.
No.
It's Dad. He's even wearing the clothes he always wears.
Lily, clever for her age, brushed off my hand and stared at John.
Is this cheating? How do you know such a word?
My friend from kindergarten told me. It's a really bad thing. That friend's mom cried every day. Is Dad a bad person? I was speechless. Then Lily stared at me and spoke.
Mom, I love Dad a lot. But I love Mom even more. If Dad makes Mom sad, Lily is on Mom's side.
Lily. Tears spilled from my eyes at Lily's words. It was always painful dealing with John's infidelity, and each time it was a shock. But I couldn't show my weakness and had been pretending to be strong. However, after Lily spoke, I felt the pain in my heart and naturally started crying. All the while, Lily held me with her small hands. A few minutes later, after calming down, I looked at Lily's face. Lily, who was looking at me with a very worried expression, was a truly kind child. Anger exploded within me against John, who cancelled on Lily's birthday, my precious child, and cheated. Lily must also be very hurt now, though she's not showing it. I can never forgive John for ruining such a special day, Lily's birthday. I swore in my heart to take revenge on John. The Ferris wheel moved slowly, getting closer to the ground. And when the door opened, I made eye contact with John, who was lined up.
Why?
John's soft voice was heard. Then, John obviously crouched to hide from the woman he was having an affair with. Walking towards the uncooperative John.
John, good job on your overseas business trip.
When I grabbed John's arm, he shivered.
That's not a case of mistaken identity, is it?
Of course not.
You said you couldn't go to the amusement park today because it was Lily's birthday, but why are you here? And what's your relationship with those two?
Upon hearing my words, the people lined up started to whisper. Feeling uncomfortable from the attention, both the woman and John clearly started to panic.
She's my childhood friend, and because she's a single mother, I decided to bring her to the amusement park. It's sad if she can't enjoy herself, right? I can take Lily anytime.
That's not right.
You are Mindy's papa.
Suddenly, the little girl they were with raised her voice.
He is Mindy's. Although he doesn't come home from work on weekdays, he plays with me every Sunday. Right, Mama?
The woman John was having an affair with was at a loss for words.
That's wrong. He is Lily's papa. He always comes home to Lily's house. Papa is cheating with that woman.
Upon hearing Lily's words, people around started talking badly about John. When I glanced sideways, I saw some people filming with their phones. Ignoring the people filming, I confronted John.
She calls you Papa. What's the deal with that? Well, of course, I can't be her father. I am your husband after all. Oh, so you're just friends with this woman? Of course. We're just friends.
John said as if he was murmuring. The girl named Mindy was shocked and teary-eyed, but John didn't comfort her. Then, the little girl grabbed John's hand.
That's a lie. He always says he loves Mama. He kisses her and says she's the one. Why would he lie? Shut up. Why would you say that? Mindy didn't do anything wrong.
With that, Mindy started to cry out loud. Drawing even more attention, John and the woman he was having an affair with desperately tried to calm her down. But it had no effect, and Mindy shook off the two of them. That's when it happened. Mindy's hand hit the woman's face, knocking off her sunglasses and hat.
Isn't that Jessica Brown? Seriously? The one from that movie?
John's affair partner turned out to be actress Jessica Brown. She is a late-blooming actress who started to attract attention in her 30s and started to appear in films and dramas a few years ago. And the moment I realized that the woman was Jessica Brown, I understood everything.
Have you been dating since before we got married? Eh? Well, what are you talking about? Because when you were in your 20s, you were cheating on me behind my back, and Jessica was one of them. At that time, both of you were unknown actors.
Looking at Jessica Brown's face, I immediately realized that she was the one John had been cheating on me with in the past. Knowing she was appearing on TV after having an affair with my husband and making a success of herself as an actress, I felt a bit irked. But I didn't know that she and John still had a relationship.
You knew that John was married to me, yet you kept having an affair with him. How did you feel about that? Were you laughing at me behind my back?
When I said that to Jessica Brown, she hung her head and started shaking.
Yes, I used to date John. But we're strangers now. I was being bothered by him and I'm annoyed. So I haven't been cheating.
What?
What are you talking about? You said we would get married when you became more famous. You told me to endure with my current wife until then, so I've been waiting without divorcing. I didn't say anything like that. I can only think about my work right now. Don't bother me.
Jessica Brown dumped John without a second thought. She has been spotted by many people, and videos of her have been taken. Despite claiming to be single in public, if it were to be revealed that she has a child and was cheating, her reputation would surely plummet. She denied the fact that she was cheating and claimed to be a victim being stalked, but people around her had seen her happily together with John before the trouble started. Her lies won't work. A large crowd formed around us, and everyone was criticizing Jessica and John in unison. John's face was pale as he kept his head down.
John, I didn't know our marriage was such a burden to you. That's not true. You're the only one for me, Susan. You don't need to lie to yourself anymore. Should we get a divorce?
John's eyes widened at my words and he lifted his face.
Wait a minute. Divorce, that's not right. It would be unfair to Lily. You wouldn't want to be separated from Daddy, would you?
John bent down and grabbed Lily's shoulder. Looking at John, who was begging her, Lily stared at him coldly.
Lily won't be lonely. Even if Dad isn't around, Mom will take me to amusement parks and play a lot with me. And Mom doesn't lie like Dad. Is that true? Didn't you say you love me? Was that a lie? It wasn't a lie. But I don't like a dad who makes Mom sad. I like Mom more than Dad, so it's okay if only Mom is here.
Looking at Lily, who was grinning and looking at me, I was about to cry again. I held back my tears and faced John.
That's how it is, so it's not a problem even if you're not here, John. But isn't it tough being a single mother, financially? I've been earning more than you, haven't I?
John bit his lip in frustration. As the awkward silence filled the air, the ringtone of a smartphone echoed. It seemed to be Jessica's phone, and she answered the call. After a brief conversation, her face started to turn pale.
Wait, please! Please do something! Manager! Please!
She cried into her phone, then slumped over, looking defeated.
What happened? The video just now went viral on social media, and my planned appearances in movies and dramas have been cancelled. That can't be true.
Jessica glared at me.
It's all your fault. I was in a good position, and now all the hard work I've put in until now has been wasted. What are you going to do about it?
As Jessica was about to hit me, the sound of smartphone camera shutters all rang out at once.
Isn't it awful? Cheating, that's the worst. I used to like her, but now I'm disappointed. Go to hell.
People who had been watching from a distance began to raise their voices against Jessica. Jessica was trembling, her teeth chattering in fear.
I'm not in the wrong. It's not my fault. I won't have anything to do with John anymore, so please forgive me. Hey, wait. Do you not care about me? Of course not. I should have never gotten involved with you. Don't ever contact me again. Let's go, Mindy.
Jessica took her daughter's hand and quickly left amidst the loud sound of smartphone camera shutters. Left behind, John was staring at Jessica, who had left with a pale face. His expression was still saying that he loved her.
You can wallow in your sentimentality, but have you forgotten about us? That's not true. I'm sorry, Lily. You guys are the most important to me. As if we can believe that? If you're going to act, at least do it better. And don't come back home, we're getting a divorce. What? Why? It's my house too, isn't it?
I sighed at John's genuinely surprised words. That apartment is under my name. I'm paying for everything, the rent and utilities, to support you, John, because you don't have any money. I've been the one paying the rent all this time, so it's mine.
What do I do then, Susan?
That's not my problem to solve. But be prepared, I'm going to demand child support.
Child support? I can't afford to pay that. You know how much I make, Susan. You're the one who's earning money here, you don't need child support.
I lost my patience as John started making a fuss.
Stop it. Lily is your daughter. You have a responsibility to raise her. Since you're not taking care of her, at least pay the money.
Hearing this, John lowered his brows and wore a pitiful expression.
But I need to pay for the apartment, and if I also pay for the gas and water, I will run out of money, and getting a new job is just too exhausting. Can't we pretend the divorce didn't happen?
John pleaded with upturned eyes. In the past, I would have indulged John's pleas, sighing but ultimately letting him have his way. I used to think his incompetence was endearing because I loved him. But now, there's no love left for John. Even his upturned eyes begging for indulgence only irk me.
Don't be ridiculous. You can't pretend it didn't happen after hurting Lily. I can't trust you anymore, John, so don't contact me. I don't like you anymore, so don't talk to me.
When Lily said this, applause broke out from the surrounding crowd.
Well said. Such bravery for a young girl. Go on. Tell him more.
The heckling from the crowd lifted my spirits slightly. Ignoring John's attempts to apologize, I left the amusement park with Lily. All that remained was John, kneeling on the ground, utterly stunned. Afterwards, John was fired from his job. The scandal became a hot topic on social media, revealing John's face, name, and workplace. His company received numerous complaints, disrupting their work, so they decided to let John go. Having lost both his job and home, I heard John has fallen into a depressive state. When I happened to see him at the supermarket, he looked nothing like his old self, disheveled with a full beard and long hair, wearing tattered clothes. I pity him, but I have no intention of stopping the demand for child support. I expect he'll stop making the monthly payments eventually, so I plan to ask for a lump sum. Furthermore, Jessica also received public backlash and has since disappeared from television. She is reportedly being badmouthed by people around town whenever she steps out and is confined to her home. As for me, I started a new life with Lily and we're managing just fine without John. I thought Lily would be devastated, but she seems to be doing better than expected, attending school cheerfully every day. Sometimes, she gets teased for not having a father around, but she doesn't seem to mind.
It's better not to have a dad like that,
she would say, showing a maturity beyond her years that makes me laugh. To me, Lily is more precious than my own life. I vowed to do my best as a mother to ensure she never has to feel sad again.
Sure, but you're going to be the one supporting those 5 brats. I'm taking the house, huh?
Upon my declaration of wanting a divorce, Mike accepted it with gleeful arrogance. Prompted by his words, I immediately prepared to leave the house. But the one who would suffer once I left was Mike himself. When would he realize that, I wondered. A small laugh escaped me as I envisioned Mike's struggle. My name is Sarah Jackson, 35 years old. Mike and I hit it off in college when we were part of the same club. After several years of dating, we tied the knot. While we were together, it seemed Mike always put me first. I never demanded special treatment, but I didn't dislike him being considerate, so I accepted everything he did.
He had promised during his proposal, "I will definitely make you happy, Sarah. I love you more than anyone in the world."
Marry me. I loved Mike dearly, so I accepted his proposal. I was genuinely excited to see the kind of home we'd build together. Mike wanted many kids and to live in a large, luxurious house. I was all for that.
Let's work hard together.
Yeah. We used to assure each other like that. After marriage, Mike's attitude started to feel a bit indifferent. Did our married life not meet his expectations? Or did he start to dislike me? Despite all my speculations, I could never understand Mike's feelings. Our married life wasn't particularly disrupted, so I let it be. Maybe someday, he'd return to his gentle, caring self. That was my hope. Several months later, we had a baby boy. To our surprise, we had twins.
I knew they were twins from the checkups, but seeing them after birth is overwhelming. We really have to work hard to raise them.
Sure. Even though Mike was the one who wanted kids so much, he seemed distant somehow. He even resisted when I tried to get him to hold our babies.
Why won't you hold them? Look how cute they are.
Well, I just don't know how to handle them. If that was his reason, I could somewhat understand. I thought we'd get used to it together. About 3 months passed since our twins were born. But Mike still didn't engage with them. He didn't just avoid holding them, it seemed like he was evading them. I tried my best to bring Mike closer to our kids, but... Nah, I'm good. That's not okay, Mike.
You should have a bit more responsibility. You are a father after all.
I wanted to say that, but I figured Mike must be tired too, so I held my tongue. Moreover, while Mike seemed uninterested in interacting with the children, he was working hard and providing for the family. So, I didn't feel like complaining. Later, Mike approached me again, saying he wanted more kids.
Hey, what do you think? But I can't take care of 3 kids all by myself. The other 2 are still small.
If Mike would help, it'd be fine, but I was pretty sure I'd be the one doing all the parenting. If we're considering another child, Mike needs to help too. I implied this in our conversation, and Mike leaned forward and said, I'm sorry for until now. From now on, I'll take proper care. I'll work harder and I'll take care of the kids too. Remember when we got married, I said I wanted lots of kids? Yes, but...
Please.
Mike was pleading more earnestly than usual. With him begging like that, I couldn't say no.
When the baby is born, we have to responsibly nurture each life, okay? You understand?
Of course.
Well then.
After observing Mike's behavior, I decided to have another child. However, things didn't go as I had expected. Surprisingly, although we planned to have just one more kid, it turned out that I was pregnant with triplets. Could such a thing even happen? While having lots of children is indeed joyous, the more there are, the more money it takes and the heavier the responsibility.
Hey, Mike. You see,
I told Mike that we were having triplets. Mike was elated and said, Really? That's wonderful. I'll work even harder. If Mike was this committed, it should be okay. I was able to face childbirth with relief. Fast forward 2 years later. Our family was far from happy, it was almost in shambles. We never got to live in the luxurious house we talked about when we got married. Instead, we had moved into a cheaper house. The house was an old, inexpensive apartment. Its age was showing, and in no uncertain terms, it was run down. But with 5 small kids, the house went from bad to worse in no time. I dread to think about the repair costs when we move out. I'm already feeling the chills thinking about it. Ideally, I'd like to have time to educate our kids, but unfortunately, I'm the only one raising them. Ever since our triplets were born, Mike lost interest in both me and our children. Before they were born, he had promised to help with the household chores and raising the children, but now it's quite the opposite.
Hey, Mike. Look after the kids. I can't handle 5 on my own. Why should I care? I'm busy with work. Have you forgotten I'm working for this family? Besides, you're a stay-at-home mom, you should be able to look after 5 kids. But there has to be a limit. Enough already. I have a meeting to attend. I don't know when I'll be back. See ya.
Mike always made up some excuse to avoid discussing things with me. By this time, the kids were able to talk and express their wishes. When they wanted to play with their dad and approached Mike.
I'm busy right now. Sarah, take care of this. Take care of this.
Mike was the one who wanted lots of kids, but he refuses to take care of them and seems to find them bothersome. The kids stopped approaching Mike because of his consistently abusive behavior. But that wasn't the end of Mike's outrageous behavior. He also stopped contributing his earnings to our family. Mike has always loved traveling and socializing. Before the kids were born, he used to say he wanted to travel as a family, but now I wonder if he even remembers that. Mike only gives me the bare minimum amount of money and spends the rest on his hobbies.
Mike, think more about our family. At this rate, I can't even feed the kids. But we've been managing so far, haven't we? Stop being so selfish. We have enough money. I'm the one who's earning it after all.
True, we've managed somehow up till now. But that's because I've been trying so hard. I've been cutting back on our expenses to save money for the kids' education. Now, I can only afford to eat 2 meals a day, if I'm lucky. Mostly, I have to make do with just 1 meal. Also, I've been taking care of the rundown parts of our house on my own. That said, it's nothing fancy. I've only done basic repairs to make it look decent. But Mike probably doesn't know any of this. He comes home drunk almost every night. Before we knew it, our home was no longer the fun and happy place we had envisioned when we first got married. It had turned into a gloomy, conversation-free hell. When did it become like this? What choices did I make wrong? The more I think about it, the more I realize that Mike is the cause. If only he could rethink his views on family and children, things might get a little better. Sigh. Looking at the dwindling money and bank balance, all I could do was sigh. Around this time, I seriously started considering divorce. If I stay with Mike, I can't imagine our children growing up healthy. Even now, the atmosphere at home is like a funeral. What's going to happen when the kids hit puberty and start growing up? I subtly asked the kids how they would feel about living apart from Mike.
Hey, would you be sad if Mom and Dad started living separately? No. As long as I'm with you, Mom.
My oldest son answered with a smile. I asked the other kids as well, and they all gave the same answer. While I was happy with their responses, I also felt a bit complicated. One morning, while I was going through all this, I woke up feeling extremely dizzy, to the point where I couldn't get out of bed. Somehow I mustered up the strength to get up and went to the living room. The kids were preparing breakfast and getting dressed by themselves. But Mike was different.
Hey, Sarah. What have you been doing? Where's my breakfast? My clothes? Wait a minute. Hurry up. I'll be late for work. Okay.
I pushed myself to the limit, making preparations for Mike. Without a word of thanks, Mike grumbled as he left for work. Well, a little sleep would probably do the trick. I explained to the kids that I was not feeling well and decided to sleep on the living room couch. Unlike Mike, the kids understood that I was not well. A little sleep would make things better, I thought. But then,
Hey!
I opened my eyes at the sound of Mike's voice. Mike seemed to be pretty angry.
Welcome back. What's the deal, not having dinner ready when I get home? And the dishes are still from this morning, and you haven't even cleaned up properly. What are you thinking? You're a stay-at-home mom, you could at least do your job properly.
Something inside me snapped at these words.
And you, always at work, what gives you the right to say that? What? I appreciate that you're working. But is it necessary to say so much when a family member is not feeling well and is struggling? I'm doing my best too. You promised to help with childcare and housework when we have kids, so why has it come to this? I was a fool for believing in you. It's not fair to the kids.
Mike looked startled. He hadn't expected me to fight back so forcefully. But he quickly recovered and countered.
I don't know, it's your job to support me, isn't it? You should consider me as your top priority. Me first, even before the kids. Got it?
I realized that even the kids, who Mike had been so eager to have, were now irrelevant to him, and it saddened me.
Do you really think so? What? Of course. I don't care about the kids anymore. I mean, why did we have so many kids? We didn't need 5.
My husband, speaking such things casually in front of our children. Something's wrong with him as a person, let alone a parent. At the same time, thanks to Mike's remarks, I realized what he thinks about our family and children. He really didn't care about the kids or me. I couldn't stand it anymore and said,
Let's get a divorce. I've had enough.
Mike responded without surprise, but rather with a confident look.
Fine, But you can have the 5 brats. As for the division of property, I'm taking the house.
He accepted more easily than I thought, but it seemed he was misunderstanding something. Does he even understand the meaning of the division of property? I'm in such mental distress, I could ask for alimony. Well, if he takes the unusually expensive house, that's fine with me. The next day. Luckily, I was feeling better, so I went to see the divorce lawyer. On the way home, looking at the divorce paper, I was relieved to finally be able to separate from Mike. At the same time, it reminded me of the past. We used to talk about wanting to build a happy home when we first got married. On the way back from the lawyer's office, I realized I was crying as I thought about various things. When Mike came home at night, I handed him the business card of my lawyer and said, "From now on, all matters concerning the divorce will be dealt through the lawyer." And so, we divorced, but I had no worries at all. Because I had a strong ally on my side. The one who will be in trouble when I leave the house is Mike himself. I wonder when he will realize that. I couldn't help but laugh at the thought of Mike struggling. From the time I started contemplating divorce, I began consulting a certain person. This person wasn't my parents or my in-laws, but my sister, Amy. Amy and I have always been very close, and I have fond memories of us playing together when we were young.
Hey, sis, I need some advice. Advice? That's unusual for you, Sarah.
Despite her surprise, I told Amy about my issues with Mike. He wanted children, but he didn't contribute to childcare. He was constantly working and didn't pay attention to our home life. He only gave me the bare minimum in terms of money, and basically spent everything else on his hobbies. As I explained my situation, I could tell Amy was getting visibly angry. And as soon as I finished talking, Amy raised her voice.
Wait. Isn't that just the worst? I know, right?
Amy huffed in anger.
Why didn't you tell me about this sooner?
I'm sorry. I didn't want to cause any trouble. That's so like you, Sarah, always thinking about others before yourself.
Even though she seemed exasperated, Amy understood my situation.
You're planning to get divorced, aren't you? When are you going to do it? I don't know. Well, if anything happens, feel free to come to me right away. I'll prepare so you can bring all the kids, too.
Amy's words, followed by her reassuring smile, gave me strength. I contacted Amy and arranged to move into her house. The kids are fond of Amy too, which gives me peace of mind. Seeing how exhausted I was from my life with Mike, Amy actively helped out with household chores and looking after the kids. I felt guilty having her do so much for me, so I asked her to take a break a few times. However, she reassured me each time, so I gratefully accepted her help. Amid all this, I found a certain job. It was a data entry job that could be done from home. This job would allow me to earn money without putting a strain on my body. Currently, I am relying on Amy's support and my savings, but I feel bad depending on her forever. Amy agreed with my plan, so I was able to concentrate on my work. Compared to before, every day feels blissful. Of course, that's not to say I've completely forgotten about Mike. The emotional scars are still there, lingering. About 2 months had passed, I think. While I was working from home, my smartphone suddenly rang. Looking at the screen, I saw Mike's name displayed. What could he possibly want at this point? Not wanting to talk to Mike, I ignored the call. After a few rings, the call ended. Finally, it stopped. Just as I thought that, the phone started ringing again. Despite repeatedly ignoring his calls, the phone continued to ring incessantly from Mike. Annoyed, I finally picked up the phone, ready to let him have it.
What do you want, Mike? You're being persistent. Hey, what did you do with the money? Huh? The money? What are you talking about?
The reason Mike had called me was that the money in our joint account had disappeared. But there was no way I could know about that. After all, Mike had the debit card, and as the account book was paper-based, there's no way I could have it after our divorce.
I don't know what you're talking about. Why are you asking me? You're the only one who could have withdrawn the money. You've always complained about not having money. It must have been you. What? What are you even saying? First of all, you're the one holding the debit card, and if you can check the balance, that means you have the account book, right? You've spent too much.
Upon hearing this, Mike raised his voice even more.
Overspending money? That can't be true. Even if I was, it shouldn't run out. When we were married, it never ran out, did it? It's inconceivable that it could all suddenly vanish now that I'm alone.
Oh, he just doesn't understand. Doesn't understand how much I've been struggling.
Listen, Mike.
I tried to explain, but Mike cut me off.
And what's up with this wall and the faucets? You didn't tell me they were all beat up. You just dumped this crappy house on me. Don't you have any human decency? You're the one lacking human decency.
Before I knew it, I had raised my voice. I glanced over at Amy, worrying I had shocked her, but instead of looking surprised, she was laughing. She mouthed, "Tell him off even more. I don't think you realized, but those walls and faucets, they were always broken. I was the one who somehow fixed it and continued living. And about the money, I was the one cutting corners and struggling. I even dipped into my own savings." But Mike didn't seem to believe a word I said.
Stop lying. I did nothing wrong. It's all your fault.
Where on earth does he get this confidence from? I'm questioning why I ever fell for such a man.
And you know what? If you had worked harder as a housewife, none of this would have happened. I'm a divorcee, you know? A divorcee. This is ruining my reputation with women.
On the other end of the phone, Mike is still ranting on. What could I possibly say to make him understand? While I was thinking, Amy came up to me. Once again, she mouthed,
"Can I borrow your phone?"
Amy must have heard everything Mike was saying. I thought she had something to say, so I handed her my phone.
Mike? Can you hear me? Huh? Who is this? I was talking to Sarah. Do you think it's okay to talk like that? Do you know who I am?
With that, Mike finally fell silent. After a brief pause, he spoke again. His voice clearly terrified, even over the phone.
Could it be? Amy. That's right. You sure gave my sister a hard time, didn't you?
Mike has always said he was scared of Amy. His reason was simple, he just found her intimidating. Considering he'd been bad-mouthing her, I could understand why he was scared now.
But why is Amy? You're really not the brightest, are you? I was with Sarah. Also, she's staying at my place now, with the kids. Is that so? Then, I'll come over right. Don't be stupid.
Mike doesn't know where Amy lives. I can hear him trying to wheedle the address out of her on the other end of the phone, but of course Amy isn't giving it to him. All I can do is watch the two of them talk. I believe in Amy, she can handle Mike. I've always known Amy was strong.
I've heard the whole story from Sarah. You make the kids but don't take care of them, you yell at Sarah to do the housework even when she's unwell, and then you call complaining about not having money or how the house is falling apart. You're really the lowest of the low, Mike. That's...
Overwhelmed by Amy's pressure, Mike was finally lost for words. But Amy continued, unfazed, voicing her thoughts. About getting alimony, about not contributing to the household, about referring to his own precious children as brats. He'd done nothing but the worst things to me when I think about it now.
Do you even realize what a scumbag you've been? Try looking at yourself objectively. How would you like it if all this happened to you? You wouldn't like it, would you? No, I wouldn't. Well, that's what you did to Sarah. You accused her of not having a heart, but you're the one without a heart.
After saying what she needed to, Amy handed the phone back to me.
Mike.
At the sound of his name, Mike responded, his voice choked with tears.
Sarah, I really messed up. I'm really sorry. Let's start over. This time, I'll do the housework and help with the kids.
After getting an earful from Amy, it seems like Mike has done some reflecting. But there was no way I was going to forgive him.
You can say what you want, but you haven't done anything for us until now. I don't expect anything from you anymore. We're divorced, remember? We're complete strangers. But... no, enough. That's enough. I didn't want anything to do with you, that's why I didn't ask for any money. But now, I'll be demanding child support. And of course, for all 5 children.
The moment I mentioned child support, Mike clearly started to panic, muttering complaints under his breath. Next to me, Amy gave me a thumbs up, saying, "Good for you."
So, you can expect a call from my lawyer soon. Hey, wait a minute.
I ignored Mike's words and hung up the phone. Afterwards, he called several times, but I ignored them all. Eventually, Mike seemed to give up and stopped calling. I immediately consulted with my lawyer and filed for child support. Of course, Mike contacted me, saying let's talk it out, but there was no way I was going to do that. I refused Mike's proposal. In the end, it seemed that Mike had resigned himself to the fact that he would have to pay child support. Now, the child support is being paid in full every month. This is just a guess, but I wonder if Mike is now living without any savings or money. But I don't feel sorry for him at all. I want him to reflect on how he's ignored us all these years. Me and the kids are still being taken care of at Amy's house. I've offered to leave several times, but Amy always kindly insists that I stay. But things are different now. I've calmed down a lot, so I decided to start working part-time at a local supermarket. This should ease the financial burden. From now on, I've decided to cherish the kids who I've unfortunately caused so much distress, and Amy who has helped us out this time.